IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, I'm your host Saif, and a guest traveler today is Shikhar Lohia, an up-and-coming Instagrammer who posts under the handle Up and Meandering. So without much ado, let's find out more about Shikhar in our brand new episode. Shikhar, thank you so much for being a part of the Musafir Stories and welcome to the podcast.
Hi Shikhar, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hi, Saif and Faiza. No worries, it's all my pleasure. For a bit of an introduction, I'm a recent graduate from Delhi University in management. I'm working and living here currently. I work at CBRE, which is an international property consultant firm. And so I've been in Delhi for most part of my life, for 16 out of 20 years that I've lived on this planet. And pretty much doing a boring corporate job like everyone else. And sometimes here and there I try to do interesting things, like I tried my hand at travel blogging when I was in the first year of my college. Then every once in a while I try to Instagram as much as I can about my travels. And ever since I was studying in a boarding school in Dehradun, all I've been wanting to do is travel the hills. I mean, people have the goals of traveling the world, but I feel that I'm solely interested in hills, and the day I complete traveling all the hills of the world, I'll be really happy. And I'm pretty much confused about everything else in life, about career, about what to do next. But one thing that I'm really not confused about is traveling. I really want to travel the Indian hills.
That's awesome. And believe me, at 20, I think I was as confused as you, and I probably wasn't even sure about traveling at that time. So at least you have one thing sorted, and you have a long way ahead.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when the corporate wave hits you, right? So you really want to pack your bags and go to.
Absolutely. I think I want to do that more than ever now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Shikhar, we have a little tradition at the Musafir Stories where each week, whenever we have a traveler come on board, what we do is we request them to take us and our listeners to a new destination and tell us everything about that trip, everything from where you lived, what you did, what you saw, what you ate, everything from A to Z. So, with that in mind, where are you taking our listeners to today?
So today we're all going to go to McLeod Gunj, which is nestled quite well in the Dhauladar hills of the Kangra Valley in Himachal Pradesh, India. And I guess a lot of us would know this, but it's also called Little Lhasa because of the majority Tibetan refugee population that settled over here since the 1959. So let's go over there and see how, one trip sort of changed my opinion about travel, how 1 week in the hills changed it all.
Excellent.
Great. And Shikhar, why did you choose this particular place?
Okay, so ever since I was a child, I used to listen to my cousins, plan their trips to McLeod Gunj. Back then, it was really less crowded and less commercialized as compared to what it is right now. And I didn't know exactly what McLeod Gunj was. I mean, as kids, what our parents, they tell us is that, okay, let's plan a trip to Manali or Mussoorie or Dalhousie or Nainital. That's the kind of mainstream and mundane hill stations that we Indian kids have been, accustomed to going to. But when I heard about Mcleodganj, I was really inquisitive about it. Then, when I used to Google about it, I used to read about how a lot of Tibetan people are living over there. And I didn't really understand the context as to why Tibetan people are living over there. Then suddenly a few months back in my final year of my undergrad degree, I just Googled and started reading about Mcleodganj, thought I might, go and travel for some time, live for a week or so. And then I got to know the whole historical context about Mcleodganj and what whole place entails. There's a different aura altogether. It's like it's like a Southeast Asian city other than an Indian city, which is inside the heart of North India. So I was really enchanted about it, and that's how I thought of traveling to it and planned my trip.
Awesome. So with that context, tell us how you got there.
Okay, so I just booked a ticket from Delhi ISBT Kashmiri Gate, which is the central bus station of Delhi.
Uh-huh.
I booked a Volvo bus from there directly till McLeodganj. So they have a bus that has prominent stops like Chandigarh, then a lot of other Himachal towns as well. Then there's Dharamshala and McLeodganj, which is the final stop. So it's an overnight journey. Let's say I boarded it around 9 or 9:30 or something, and then I reached McLeod early in the morning around 7. So it's a very comfortable overnight journey. I mean, you spend most of the night almost sleeping and you do not face any issues. And you wake up to the most majestic valley ever. I mean, it's totally different than other valleys. It's like 1,000 kilometers width and length. And you're just right in the middle of the valley. And as far as you can see, there's open space and there are mountains crowning it.
Amazing.
Excellent. And it must have been a great view to wake up in the morning,
Yeah,
like, from what you left.
exactly. The journey is really beautiful. Yeah. If you compare it to what I left in Delhi, it's amazing. I mean, what I left in Delhi was just people trying to hop inside the bus and random flyovers here and there.
Kashmiri
And a
Gate,
lot
I
of-
can imagine.
Yeah.
So, Shikhar, in terms of preparation for travel, did you pack anything extra, and how did you prepare for the trip?
I'm a very amateur traveler. I did not really know. So I just took my rucksack, which is a pretty huge rucksack, and I just packed, everything that I thought I could need. Since this was not a camping or hiking trip, I did not, carry torches or, let's say, raincoats and stuff and sleeping bag. But yeah, I did carry all the necessities. Like I carried some important medicines. I carried enough clothes. I carried enough footwear. And I did know that it rained. So I saw the forecast, and the forecast told that it had rained in Mcleodganj 2 days before my traveling days. So yeah, and that's why I did a lot of warm clothes, even though it was in March. And my camera, yes. How can I forget? How can I, how am I mentioning it in the last, in the end of the list? But yeah, I did carry my camera.
No, perfect.
What camera do you use?
I use a Nikon D3200, which is a pretty basic model, but yeah, it's enough for an amateur traveler.
Awesome. And then what time of the year was this, Shikhar?
This was in March.
Okay, and a good time to travel? March is a good time to travel there?
Yeah, it's a very good time to travel in there because since McLeodganj is not, perched at a really high altitude, it's even harsh winters are fine to travel, December and January. But March is particularly a very good time that I felt because although it was all by coincidence that I traveled in March, there are good rain showers in March. I mean, there'll be once in a day at least you'll see it showering for, let's say, 1 or 2 hours, and which makes the weather really pleasant.
Right.
And also the hills that are above McLeodganj, which basically, sort of make a cap for McLeodganj, those are completely covered in snow during March. So it's a really nice sight. I mean, there's a green valley down, and there are shining white peaks above. And it's not even that cold. It's in March, it's around minimum is 3 degrees Celsius. So yeah,
Wow,
it's a good weather.
That sounds beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it does sound a little cold, especially for us South Indians.
Yeah, it does. 3.
Probably for yes, probably for the South Indians, yeah. But we Delhiites are accustomed to that kind of cold.
Yeah, I know when you said the weather was okay, it was around 3. I just looked at 3 degrees.
It gets really cold at night over there. I mean, the weather is as extreme as it gets. It's really sunny, and you feel like taking off all the layers and just walking here and there around. And as and when the sun gets down, as and when the clock hits 7, it's maddening cold.
Yeah.
It's maddening cold for people who are not from North India. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, so Shikhar, in terms of stay, how long was your trip for?
So my trip was for 7 days. Roughly, I reached one Sunday morning and then I left on the next Saturday.
Okay.
So it was a good 7 days long trip.
What was the agenda? We didn't ask you this earlier, but what was on your mind when you just boarded that bus from Kashmiri Gate and got off at McLeodganj?
So actually, nothing was really in my mind. I'd read about this particular, volunteer organization that works in Mcleodganj for the Tibetan refugee family kids.
Okay.
So it's called La Charitable Trust, spelled as in LHA and Charitable Trust.
Okay.
So it has a lot of programs where it encourages travelers to come and volunteer even for hours, for as long as they want. They can you can even volunteer for 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 week, 2 week, or months. So yeah, I'd read about it and I just thought that okay, let me just go. I'd never planned anything over there. I did not have a formalized program schedule for myself. I just boarded the bus and I thought that okay, let me just get down, touch McLeod down, and then I'll see what I have to do. So I had this in mind. I wanted to explore the city and I wanted to know more about the culture. I wanted to read, I really wanted to read some biographies out there about the Dalai Lama, which I eventually did. So these were a few basic vectors that were there in my mind, which made me decide and zero upon McLeod Gunj.
Excellent. With that context and with that noble thought more than anything, let's get on with the itinerary. Tell us how your day one was spent, and so as you said, you didn't have anything planned. So how was your stay, and how was your boarding there planned?
So my day one was pretty interesting. As much as the view outside was interesting, as soon as I got down into McLeodganj, it dawned upon me that I have not formally booked a lodging.
Oh my God.
I did not pre-book any hotels, and it was freezing cold. It was maddening cold out there, and I had a really heavy bag. So I just asked a couple of taxi drivers, and I asked them how far the city center is. It was like a half a kilometer walk. I just walked till the city center, and I started, I opened a list of hotels and guest houses and lodges on TripAdvisor, and I started looking, descending order wise from the most popular hotels to the least popular hotels. I started going to the most popular hotels, and it was jam packed. There were no vacancies for at least the first 5 or 6 hotels that I, knocked the doors off, and it was really cold. So I traveled, I actually walked for around 1 hour or so at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then I finally got one guest house, one noble guest house that gave me a room to stay, and it's called Kunga Guest House, and it's a very it's a very good value for money stay. So in McLeodganj, the average prices are less than 1,000 rupees per night for a room.
Wow.
Those are all budget hotels, and they give you really good rooms for that kind of money. So I had a 700 per night room, and there were decent amenities. There was a TV, there was a bed, there was a kitchen, there was a set up your own kitchen sort of space.
Oh, wow.
There was hot water. Of all, the most important thing. And the guest house was just located inside, so my room just opened into a very narrow street where I could see little Tibetan kids walking to school every day, coming back, and women just screaming out of their kitchen, shouting for ingredients and buying vegetables from vegetable vendors. So yeah, it felt like I am living with those people. So it was a good stay.
Yeah, amazing.
So and then what was the plan then? Were you?
Yes. So after getting the hotel, I just rested, and I decided to have breakfast. I went to Jimmy's Cafe, which serves the best waffles in McLeodganj. If any of the listeners ever plan to go to McLeodganj, you should go to Jimmy's Cafe. So I was having
gonna go
breakfast.
there soon.
Yeah, please go there soon. So I was having breakfast. I was having waffles, and I was sitting alone on the table when suddenly an American couple named Greg and Kristen, they suddenly came and they asked if they could sit with me because I was the only person sitting on the table. So one thing led to another. We kept on talking, and they told me how they have taken a 1 month break just to travel within India, and they were coming from Rishikesh. They had volunteered in Rishikesh, and they told me about this really good teaching that was gonna happen during the next 2 days in the main temple, in the Dalai Temple of Gunj, which is His Holiness the Dalai Lama's residence.
Sure.
So I got really interested, and I, asked them to get tickets for me if they were going to go to the office. So that was pretty much half of the day of my day one. The next half was pretty much just roaming about here and there, trying out different kinds of momos and dumplings, and just just walking around here and there, trying to click as much street pictures as I could. During my next day, I finally went to the Dalai Lama temple. I met Greg and Kristen again, and then we bought the tickets finally, but it was too late. The line was huge. If any of the listener or you guys ever plan to go to this Dalai Lama teaching, which really is a very enriching one, please pre-book your tickets. You would have to stand in the line for 3 to 4 hours. That's the kind of following the Dalai Lama has.
Wow. And what time of the day did you end up going there?
So I went, this was my day 2 when I went to the teaching, and and I went there at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, 8 a.m. Oh my God. Okay. So it was way too crowded at 8 a.m. as well?
Yeah, it was way too crowded at 8 a.m. in the morning as well. It was a huge line. I mean, the line started at the main gate of the temple, and it wound up to the 3rd floor of the temple. So it was a pretty huge line.
Okay. So, when you say to pre-book the tickets, can we do that online, or how is it done?
I'm actually not sure if you can do it online because I did not visit the website, but as and when you go to McLeodganj, you can visit the office of the Tibetan government in exile. So it's near the main temple. You can just go to the main temple, and any point of time in the afternoon or in the early hours of the evening, like 4 or 5, you can go there and get your tickets.
All right. Okay.
And how often do the teachings happen?
This particular teaching happens annually, so it happens only in March, and it attracts a huge crowd from both north and other parts of India as well. So predominantly I thought that the crowd would be Tibetan, but I was actually really shocked. I mean, there were lots of people out there. There were lots of South Indian people. There were lots of East Indian people, and there were lots of North Indian people as well. And
even
all sorts of people. Yes, a lot of foreigners as well. Loads of them, especially from the states in England. And you can find pretty much anyone, corporate workers, and I even found an Indian soap opera actress out there. So literally everyone is there.
Sure, and I'm really not surprised that there's such a huge following, because His Holiness Dalai Lama is such a personality that he attracts people from every nook and corner of the world.
Yeah, I mean, even though he's so modest, even though he's, under such threats all the time, I mean, he is obviously, though a very noble figure, but a very controversial figure in a few countries' eyes. Sure. So even though, when he's being escorted from his chambers to his car, it's very strictly advised to him that he just walks into his car and gets in as soon as possible. But he still takes time. He meanders here and there. He tries talking to people, makes eye contact with them, blesses the elderly. And so, that just shows leaps and bounds about him, that he's even though under such threat and at such an elderly age, he's trying to do a lot for the people.
Yeah, he's a really great personality. So, Shikhar, how much time did this whole process of getting the tickets? You said it was 3 to 4 hours, so was it almost midday?
Yes, it was almost midday by the time I had gotten hold of the tickets. If not midday, it was it was at least 11 or 11:30 a.m. in the morning, and the teaching was already, in its final leg at that point of time. So we had no chance but to attend the final day's teaching. So that was the last day, and where he, officially closes the teaching. So we finally got our tickets and decided to head back to the city center of McLeod Gunj, had some really great coffee, and decided to go to Bhagsunag temple. So it's a temple which is located at around 3 to 4 kilometers from the main temple, like from the main city center, roughly a half an hour walk. And it's a very ancient temple. It was also used as a storehouse of rifles by a few regiments of the Indian Army, and there are still marks of that in the walls of the temple. And essentially it's the temple of Nag Devta, and there's a little pond out there in which people take holy dips. So it's a good site altogether. And once you visit the temple, there's another road that starts from the temple and goes all the way to Bhagsunag Falls.
Okay.
So even though it's a pretty commercialized place by now, but when you visit that place in the evening, it's really quaint and nice. It's comparatively less crowded in the evening, and there's a very small shack over there which serves you some really great tea and snacks right beside the falls. And there's also a very I'll definitely go on using this term, called legendary cafe.
Oh, is that the Shiva's Cafe?
Yes. So it's a very famous cafe out there, and it's one of the cafes that serves one of the very few cafes in McLeodganj that serves very multi-cuisine menu. It serves Israeli as well.
Okay. So one question, Shikhar, did you said you walked to the falls and the temple, right?
Yeah.
So how far of a walk was it?
So from the city center to the temple, it'll take an average person around 25 minutes to 30 minutes to walk.
Okay, that's cool. Okay.
And from the temple to the falls, let's say another 20 minutes. But from the temple to the falls, it's an uphill hike. It's not a very proper road.
Right.
It's an uphill hike.
Okay.
And it's a bit rocky in places.
Okay, so walking is the only option from the temple to the falls, or
From the temple to the falls, yes.
Cool. And did Kristen and Greg accompany you all this while, or?
Yes. Greg and Kristen accompanied me on this one, and believe me, you'll find the best kind of mountain dogs on the Bhagsunag Falls.
Oh my
Those
God,
dogs, they are really huge, and they are very clean, and their coat is massive.
Whoa.
I mean, it's almost 4 times of what the street dogs are here, and those are street dogs. Those are
my
not
God.
tamed ones.
Wow.
And you'll just brush your fingers through their coat, and you won't find a speck of dust on your fingers.
No.
They are that clean. And they'll
Amazing.
just follow you for meters and meters. There was this huge dog. I cannot, I do not know which breed was it of, but it was sort of a German Shepherd kind of dog, but of a peach color. And it started following us, and the dog just didn't give up.
Oh
I mean,
my
we kept
God.
on walking 100 meters, 200 meters. That dog didn't give up.
Oh, that is a nice and friendly dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I guess you spent the rest of the day visiting the temple and the falls, right? And
Yeah, it was really a hectic day. I mean, by the time we got to the city center from the Bhagsunag Falls, we were really tired, and all we could think of was just go and have some nice momos. So yeah.
Okay, I need to ask you this.
Yeah.
Which is the best tasting momo? Like, are they like, I've heard a lot of different variety of momos are there. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. And
I'm hungry
so
now.
there's this, So there's this place called Tibetan Kitchen in the city center, which serves amazing variety of momos. So my favorite momos over there were fried cheese momos. So those were fried momos
Okay.
with a filling of cheese and vegetables. So those were really great. And the best thing about them was the sauces that accompanied them. Really yummy sauces.
Okay, Shikhar, maybe
And there's
after this interview, I am going to go on Swiggy's and order some momos for myself now.
And they I don't know if you guys would have heard about it or not, but there's this Tibetan dish called thukpa, and McLeod Gunj was full of it. So
kind of a thing, if I'm not wrong.
yeah, it's a kind of a soup. Yeah, so it's a very thin broth and noodles, consisting of noodles and vegetables.
Okay, thank you. You're making me so hungry now.
Okay, then I guess let's just move on to some other.
yeah, so there's really no dearth of good food. But what about
Yeah, absolutely.
vegetarians?
So I'm a vegetarian.
Okay.
And there's no dearth for vegetarians as well. There are a lot of vegetarian options in terms of all the cuisines. There's Indian, there's Tibetan, there's American as well at some places. Then there's also Italian. There's a lot of Italian. And yeah, there's absolutely no dearth of vegetarian options. I, for once, did not feel that at all.
That's so. What did you do on day 3?
Yeah, day
Shikhar?
3.
Yeah.
Just run us through day 3. I'm assuming the highlight would have been the teaching of Dalai Lama, right?
Yes, that was the day 3. I got up really late and I rushed to the temple. I was afraid that I won't get to go inside. But my friends, Greg and Kristen, they were so great. They just waited outside the temple for me and didn't go inside till the time I came. So I rushed to temple, practically ran half of my way, and I went inside. We got seated. We got decent seats under the shade, and so it was a really good arrangement. There were mats and people were sitting on the floor, and His Holiness, he was speaking. And there's also one thing that the listeners should take care of if they ever end up attending this teaching. There's they sell radio transmitters outside in a lot of shops throughout McLeodganj. So since the Dalai Lama speaks in Tibetan, these radio transmitters act as translators. So so there are temporary radio stations that translate his teachings in Tibetan to English and Hindi. So you can buy one for about for as cheap as 250 to a dearer one like 500 or 600 bucks one, and you can just plug your earphones in and tune into the radio channel, which is your destined language. So I listen to it in English, and it's a fairly 2 to 3 hours long teaching in which he also does some rituals along with his other priests inside, and he teaches primarily about bodhisattvas and a great deal of other Buddhist topics.
Interesting.
And it's quite easy to get these transmitters, Shikhar?
Yeah, it's quite easy to get those. They are sold in practically all shops. So yeah, you can just buy these transmitters from any of these shops, and they are even you can just ask your hotel or the main temple as well.
Okay.
They'll tell you the place where to buy this from.
Okay, because that's quite a nice point for someone who doesn't know and who ends up going to the teaching. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And if even if you're not carrying one, you'll always find a generous traveler who will be willing to share one earphone with you.
That's nice. And how big of a gathering is it, Shikhar?
It's a huge gathering. Let's say like a courtyard full of around 200 to 300 people minimum.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to call out from the teaching, or are we ready to move on?
I think we're good to move on to the next subject.
Okay. So this was day 3.
Yeah, this was day 3. Actually, I didn't. The teaching part was over about day 3, and that's how, that's where I actually, after attending the Dalai Lama's teaching on day 3, I really got this drive to know more about him, and I picked some books of him and about him from my hotel's bookshelf. So that's from day 3, I started reading about the Dalai Lama a lot. And after the teaching, Greg, Kristen and I, we just decided to go to this place called Dal Lake, which is a few kilometers off Mcleodganj. You can just walk. It's around 4 to 5 kilometers from Mcleodganj. And it's a very nice place. I mean, it's an uphill hike, but still that hike is really amazing. It has, that place is not really commercialized at all, and unlike the Bhagsunag Falls, the way will be less crowded. In the middle of Dal Lake, we spotted one hospital for dogs. So it was a vet clinic, and again full of dogs from the hills and street dogs actually, and it was so great. I mean that there was a huge cage filled with dogs of all kinds. They were different. They were black dogs, they were peach colored dogs, and there were dogs of all age. And those dogs were, when they were admitted to this hospital, they were suffering from serious ailments, but had to the administration of this hospital and the kind of and the hardworking people of the city. At present, there are no rabies infected dogs in Mcleodganj.
Oh, great.
That was an actual fact, they told us. And they started off in the early 2000s. They had this drive where they would vaccinate the dogs, and now there is no rabies infected dog in Mcleodganj.
Wow, that's a great effort.
And
Yeah,
it's a
so-
great achievement too.
It indeed is a very great achievement. I mean, I was really shocked to hear about it, how they could vaccinate the dogs of this scattered hill station. I mean, it's great effort and really good for the civic sense. Once we exited this hospital, we started our way back to the Dal Lake. And once you reach Dal Lake, I'd say it's an ordinary as well as something extraordinary as well. So as soon as you reach Dal Lake, you will find, a host of auto barriers standing, and which will give you a sense of, okay, now I'm here at another commercialized and crowded place. But that's not that's not so. It's a very small lake surrounded by coniferous trees, and it really looks beautiful. There are very less tourists out there clicking pictures and all that. It's not that kind of a place, and you're not allowed to boat inside Dal Lake, so it's all the more cleaner than other lakes. And besides Dal Lake, surrounding it, there are around 2 to 3 temples. So these are they are Hindu temples. They're not Buddhist temples, and the bells, the ringing bells, and the, let's say, the aartis, fire, and it all the more adds to the aura of this place. It really looks good in the evening. We went there in the evening, and you can, once it starts getting dark, you can see the sky, filling with stars, which you cannot see in Delhi. That's a very, I won't even say rare. It's an impossible sight to see
it's
that
impossible, I
in
think.
Delhi.
Yeah.
It's totally impossible to see that in Delhi. And the lake is a very good picture, to click pictures. Is a very good place to click pictures. If you're a budding photographer and if you're carrying your DSLR, it's great. You'll end up spending at least 1 or 2 hours over there. It's that great.
I think I've seen a few pictures of it as well. There's a nice canopy of deodar trees surrounding the lake, right? I was actually going to ask you, my next question was going to be around interaction with the locals or the community there, apart from Greg and Kristen, obviously. How was that? Any instances where you got to share some good time with the locals?
Yes, definitely. So one of my, predominantly when I shared time with the locals was when I was volunteering with La Charitable Trust, and
So this
I
was
would go
what,
there.
the next day?
4?
If that's the next day, we could just go with the flow.
Yeah, so day 1, 2, and 3 was roaming in and around Mcleodganj, and day 4, 5, and 6 were absolutely, simply reading and going and volunteering at La. No, actually, not quite right. Day 4 was a little different. Day 4 was Holi. Yes, day 4 was Holi, and it was really filled with colors on the streets. So Greg and Kristen were there with me in the morning, and I was supposed to volunteer during the evening. And we did end up playing Holi with a few locals on the street. Yes,
That's awesome.
there were some people. There were some good people from Punjab who had drove to McLeod, and they were playing Holi with the drums and all. And Greg and Kristen, they got really excited, and even a great number of Tibetan people, because Holi is a festival completely alien to them. Even they really get excited and start playing Holi on the streets. So yeah, it was good. And Holi without water, that was the best thing. They would just come out and dance and throw some color here and there without harming the dogs. And yeah, responsible that over there I actually saw some responsible Holi.
Right.
That was really good. And my day 4 primarily consisted of going to the main temple, going to the city center's temple. So there's a temple called Kala Chakra Temple, and it's a fairly small temple, not as big as the Dalai Lama's temple, but yeah, it's really beautiful from the inside. I've also shared some pictures with you. So one picture is of the temple. It's really colorful and very beautiful. And I did play Holi with Greg and Kristen and some locals. And that was the first day of volunteering. So in this particular organization, if you're volunteering, you'll be, so I volunteered for English conversation classes. Most of the volunteers volunteer as English conversation specialists. So you get 1 hour with a group of locals. So these necessarily need not be kids.
Okay.
They can be grown-ups as well. Actually, most of them are preteens to, like early 20s people. So you get a group and you have a few placards with you which have some topics of interest. So let's say there are topics like responsible advertising in television, then the role, gender roles, the role of kids in shaping or in shaping the ideologies and thoughts of adults, and not the other way around. So there are some really interesting topics with them, or you can just pick up one book and start reading it out to them and discussing what their thoughts are. So it's a really nice activity. You also get to know. I also got to know about their everyday lives. Some of these people, they actually all of them, 95% of them were Tibetan refugee. They belong to the Tibetan refugee families, although they were born in India. But earlier in the 1950s and 60s, their grandparents or parents had come into India.
Okay.
So yeah, these people, they are really modest and upfront about life. They would just share everything out to you. They would just bear everything, actually their thoughts in front of you. So when I was discussing about movies, they would just get so excited and talk about Salman Khan, this movie Bajrangi Bhaijaan, and they would talk. Some of them really liked Amir Khan, some of them really liked Ranbir Kapoor. It was those conversations were really nice. I could feel as if they belong to a totally different culture, but how welcomingly they have imbibed into our culture as well.
Yeah, and gives out really good vibes too, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And when I so sometimes they would also, so these people, they have a lot of security concerns at all times. I mean, these people, they were driven out of their country. They were literally driven out of their country. So when I reassured this in my mind that that I am a part of the country that helped them during those testing and desperate times, and and the country that has helped them preserve their culture.
Yeah.
And actually enrich it day by day in different colonies, in different Tibetan refugee colonies. It really made me feel humble as well. And they were also, they could just quickly connect with me and talk anything that they wanted to. They could also share their concerns about not being that fluent in English or not knowing Hindi. I mean, communication was never a barrier. They were actually, they never sort of felt that okay, this is an English conversation class and communication is being a hindrance. It was actually as if we were communicating very efficiently, even without not being on the same levels of the language.
Awesome. It's easy to be blown away by the beauty surrounding McLeod Gunj, but this experience, I'm sure it's a whole different experience and worthwhile as well, right? Spending 3 days there.
Yeah, exactly. It was totally worthwhile. I mean, for the first 3 or 4 days, I was just, seeing the external beauty of McLeod Gunj. I was just admiring the hills, the temples, the food, and the clean roads, stuff like that. But in the following 2 or 3 days, I actually got to interact with the people and got to know what actually exists inside McLeod Gunj, how the kind of the vibes that are there inside the city. If you remove the whole tourist and tourist attraction cloud from McLeod Gunj, what actually is inside the soul of the city, that I really touched in these 2 or 3 days.
Awesome. That's an enriching experience.
Awesome. As I said, it's been a wonderful experience and a wonderful journey so far, as you said, from everything from the external beauty and the beautiful waterfalls to being at the teaching of the Dalai Lama and meeting beautiful people like the locals, as well as the American couple and Kristen and Greg, as well as doing this wonderful job at volunteering. So it's been a really, really enriching experience from the sounds of it, and I'm sure you enjoyed the whole of it. But if I had to ask you one memorable moment from this trip, if you had to just close your eyes and think about one memorable moment, what would that be, Shikhar?
So I can actually I cannot single down on one memorable moment. Actually, I can really think of two. If I just zoom out of this whole trip, and those are really contrasting moments. So one was when it was, it was after we went to the Dal Lake, and it was a pretty chilly night that time, and we were sitting on the rooftop of this particular restaurant, and we were just listening to the live music happening downstairs, and we were on the terrace. The music was really fade, and the wind was quite pleasant. We could actually hear crickets as well from the plants around the table, and the food was delicious. There was Greg, there was Kristen, and I was there, and the kind of conversations that we had then, it was really amazing. I mean, we discussed everything from world politics to, let's say, an individual's responsibility towards his own life. What are their life experiences back there? What my life experiences have been, in India, how I'm starting a whole journey altogether after graduating to a completely new life, how they have been, working, so Kristen was a teacher and Greg was an engineer, how their journeys have been till now, and they also lived in a hill station back there in Colorado. So yeah, it was a really good time. And of course, talking about the elections 2016 in America, it was a really good time. And the next incident that I can think of was, so in the Dalai Lama's main temple, there's this particular, it's a museum, it's a historic museum, which has on display information about what actually happened during the Tibetan uprising of 1959, when the Dalai Lama and thousands of his followers fled from Tibet to India. So, you get to know the kind of crimes that were committed during that time, the kind of hardships that these common people faced, what were the political tensions over there. And it's a really minimal and let's say grim atmosphere surrounding there. But once you get out of it, and you just have this, you're just added with knowledge of the people that have suffered and still lived through it, and it suddenly it sends in a motivation injection within you, that if people can be through so much and they can still start their lives from scratch in a totally different country, then I mean, you can just not stop admiring the kind of willpower that human beings have. I mean, you can actually do anything. If these people can be through all this and still start fresh, you can also just do anything. So that's very enriching. And also they serve you yak butter tea in the Dalai Lama teaching. That was also another very good experience. It's not tasty for a tea lover like me. I like my tea sweet, but yeah, it's a good experience altogether. Having an empty coffee cup that you drank on the way to the temple, and then having the monks respectfully offer you yak butter tea. That's really good. The experience is good. Tasting something so different altogether, and feeling like being a part of someone else's culture and sharing it. It was really good. So these were the two instances out of my head that I can think of right now, the best ones.
That's awesome. And as you said, they are quite striking in terms of difference, and in terms of the setting as well. One about great Dalai Lama and the tradition and the tree attached to it, and the other one more contemporary, sitting under the stars and talking to some good friends about life in general, I guess. On a closing note, I'd just like to thank you so much for being an excellent guide to us and all our listeners, and taking us on this beautiful journey, as I said, both to the eye and to the mind, just in terms of the experiences you have had, and the things you've done in terms of being a part of the teachings of the Holiness Dalai Lama, as well as volunteering and spending some quality time with the local Tibetan refugees and Tibetans there in general. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikhar. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guide.
That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Audioboom, Stitcher, Pocket Radio, or any other podcasting app that's available on iOS or Android. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or If it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com and visit our website www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of the podcast. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.